Okay, so what we see is everything here is a part of the app. The apps, the tabs that you see, the objects that are there for storing data, the fields inside the objects, any logics which are controlling the operations, any user interface. So all these together form the entire application that you use, right? Now the next thing that we need to understand is, because there are so many components, we also need to control the access to these components, which is very important. Do you think everyone will have access to everything? When you go to an office or when you go to a college or university, do you think everyone in the college has access to every place? No, right? A student cannot go and access principal's room, that sort of thing, right? So for anything in this world, there are certain access controls, right? So the same way Salesforce.com also has that option there. If there are 100 users in the company, everyone will not need access and everyone should not have access to everything. If there are 10 objects in the backend, every person in the company does not require access to all those 10 objects, right? Some people just need access to 5 of them, some of them need access just to 2 of them, right? If there are 10 interfaces, user interfaces, everyone does not need access to all the user interfaces. Some people will need some interface, the others will need the other interface. That is how it would work, right? So that is what we are going to talk today: access and permissions. Okay, so access and permissions is defined using some of the options. We have some options to control the access and permission of individual users. The first such option is called a profile. Okay, what is a profile? Profile is set of permissions. Okay, what is a profile? It's a set or collection of permissions which can be assigned to a user, or it can be assigned to multiple users. Okay, so again, we understand this, that some people may need same kind of access. Let's say if there are 10 people in the sales team, they all will need same kind of access. Again, if there are 5 people in the HR team, they all will need same kind of access. If there are 4 people in the finance team, they might need same kind of access. It's not that they will need, I'm saying they may need or they might need, right? So profile is collection of permissions. So you put all those permissions in a profile and then you assign that profile to a user. Okay, let's say Sridhar and Chandu both are in sales team. They need certain permissions. They need to access some objects, they need to access some user interface. Now instead of giving individual permissions to Sridhar and Chandu, what I can do is I can create a profile, call it sales profile, put all the permissions in that profile and assign that profile to both of them. That makes my life easier. Here I am talking about 2 people. In a company there can be 200 people who need same profile, right? So making a profile makes your life a lot easier. As an administrator of Salesforce.com or as a developer of Salesforce.com, your life becomes a lot easier when you have profile kind of a concept. You put the permissions required by that profile, put those permissions and assign that profile to the users. Simple. Okay. Now profile is the first thing. So what all permissions do we control on the profile? The apps which are visible to the user, that is controlled on the profile. Tabs visible, this is controlled through profile. So which all apps a user will get to see depends on his profile. Okay, which all tabs a user will get to see. If you have 5 apps in your organization, every user in your organization does not need to view all those 5 apps. For example, if you have a sales app and a marketing app, do you think everyone needs to access sales and marketing both? No. There can be users who just need to access marketing app. There can be users who just need to access sales app, right? So that is what we have here, that which all apps are visible to a user depends on the profile. Okay, so that is controlled on the profile of the user. Which all tabs are visible to a user, that is also controlled on the profile of the user. Which all objects viewer will view, a user will uh, view or edit or delete or create. This also depends on the profile. Why view, edit, delete, create? Because in object we have data, right? So for object we have to define whether the user can only see the data in it, whether he is able to edit the data, whether he can delete data, or can he create the data also in that object. Alright, so that's about tabs. Sorry, that's about objects. So we have app visibility controlled through profile, we have tabs visibility controlled through profiles, we have object level permissions controlled through profiles, field permissions controlled through profile. If a user will get to see a certain field or not, that also depends on his profile. Sometimes you may have that field level restriction also. Let's say social security number. If you store social security number on a field or email ID on a field, you don't want all the users to view that field. You can keep that field hidden from certain profiles, right? So whatever data is a little confidential, you can keep that in a field which is hidden from some users, some group of users. Okay, so this is also controlled through profile. Login time, if you remember, we talked about login time. You can restrict the users from logging in from at a certain time. You can always put a restriction that the user should be able to log in from 9 to 6 or 9 to 7. So we have talked about this earlier, that there is a scope. So this login time restriction is also put in Salesforce through profile. Okay, so you can restrict a certain profile from logging in at a certain point of time. Okay, let's say your sales team works from morning 9 to evening 9. You can just define the login time from morning 9 to 9. If it's a finance team, they work from 10 to 5. You can define their login time as 10 to 5. So if they try to log in beyond that, after 5 or before 10, they will not be allowed to log in. Okay? So these kind of things can be controlled on the profile. Okay. Apart from this, you have admin permissions and you have user permissions. These are also controlled through profile. So all this is controlled through profile. Whether a user will view a app or not, whether he will see a tab or not, whether he will be able to see data in a certain object, whether he will be able to edit, delete or create data in a certain object, what fields he will get to see, what login times he is allowed to log in, based admin permissions, whether he can control or change things for other users or not. User permission means his personal settings, can he change and not. Everything depends on the profile of the user. Got it? Now another thing about profile is every user should have a profile. Okay, so every user should have at least one profile. There cannot be a user without a profile, because without a profile the permissions that he has will not be without the profile he will not have the permissions, right? So every user needs to have a profile. So every user that you have within Salesforce, everyone will have a profile. A user can have only one profile, and every user should have only one profile. So you cannot have two profiles for a user. Like if a user is a sales user, he will just be a sales user. Okay, he will just have permission from coming from that profile. You cannot make a user a sales and finance user both. Okay, so one user can have just one profile. Okay, so in other words, if I have to talk to you regarding the relationship, a profile user is a one-to-many relationship. Remember one-to-many relationship we talked the other day? So one profile can be assigned to multiple users, but one user can only have one profile. Please let me know if this is not clear to anyone. So you have understood this thing? Now let's create a profile. Just give me 1 minute. Let me log in. Yeah. Can you see my screen? So here it is. For profile, you just need to go to setup, expand this manage users option. Here you will see profiles. Okay. So there are certain standard profiles which are by default provided by Salesforce. Okay. Ready-made profiles which you can straight away assign to users. And there are certain, you also have an option of creating your own profiles. So if you need a profile, as I told you, profile is just a set of permissions, right? So there are some default set of permissions which are there, like contract manager profile, and then there is a marketing user profile. The same way there is a sales user profile. So there are a lot of them which are by default there, and these are default set of permissions. Standard user, system administrator, read-only profile. So gradually once you start working on it, you will understand which all permissions are there into these standard profiles which are available. Along with these profiles, you also have an option of creating your own profile. So if you feel that you have a requirement which is completely different from what they have provided, you always have an option of going ahead and creating your own profile. So you can just click on your profile and then start creating your profile. You can clone it from an existing one and create your own, like clone it from system administrator, give it some other name and start creating it. Not that. So that is what that is how it can be done. Got this? So that's about the profiles. Now let's get into one of the profiles and see how we can change the permissions. So let me go into system administrator. There is a profile that I am using for this user, current user Venkat. See, you click on the profile. If you want to change certain permissions on the profile, you click on the profile, click on edit. As I told you, the profile controls things like what all apps will be visible. Now, which all apps will be visible through this profile are selected here. If you don't want marketing app to be visible on this profile, turn it off. If you don't want sales app to be visible on this profile, turn it off. If you don't want a community app to be visible, so whatever apps you have created, recruiting app you have created, you don't want this to be visible on this profile, just turn it off, right? So people who have been assigned this profile, they will only get to see the apps which are made visible to this profile. Pretty simple, right? So what a user will see, not see, what he can do within a Salesforce or not cannot do, that completely depends on his profile. As simple as that. After that, you see the tabs. So there are so many tabs. We have seen accounts, campaigns, opportunities, contacts. There are a lot of them, right? Products. Then there are tabs that you have created, the custom tabs. Candidates, job applications, jobs. There can be more, right? So whether the tab will be visible to the profile users or not, that also is defined here. You can hide a tab from a user, you can make it on, you can make it off. Okay, so what is the difference between tab hidden and default off? Default on means he will get to see the tab, right? Default off means the tab will not be visible on the tab panel, but it will be visible if the user clicks on this button, this plus sign. This is default off. By default, he does not see it on that panel, but if the user clicks on this button, he gets to see that tab on all tabs button. Tab hidden means he will not get to see that tab at all, even by clicking on this. Okay, so it depends, right? Like if you have an app for sales and if you have an app for HR team, you definitely would not want the sales team to see the job applications and things like, because they would never use it, right? So you can just make those tabs hidden, right? So that is. Then admin permissions, user permissions, then object permissions. As I told you, for which object the profile has what level of permission: read, create, edit, delete. What level of permissions you are allowing for a certain object to the users of the profile. That is also controlled here. Okay, whether he has a read permission, create permission. But interesting thing is, you don't see any option of changing it. See, this is not editable. This is completely grayed out. So I don't have an option of changing it. Do you see? I click on this, but it does not get turned off. The reason is, this is a standard profile. We are not able to change object permissions on a standard profile. We are not allowed to change object permissions on a standard profile. So on a standard profile, you cannot change the object permission. Whatever object permission is allowed, you just have to work with that. If you really want to make certain changes on the object permissions and define it the way you want, then you'll have to go with a custom profile. You'll have to create your own profile, right? So this is a restriction with the standard profile. Hello, can you hear me? That's all. All right. So we were just talking on this thing, that this object level permissions cannot be edited on the standard profiles. If you want, see, standard profile they have provided, they have given you a certain set of permission on the objects for every standard profile. After the session, once go and start opening some of the profiles and browse through them, you will see that there are different set of permissions allowed on different profiles. Now you do not have an option of editing it. Let's say I don't want the delete option to be here. I cannot change it directly here. The way I change the apps and tabs permission, I'm not allowed to change the delete permission and stuff, right? So this can only be done if you are using a custom profile. So no worries, I mean, we do have an option of creating a custom profile. Let's say I just want the system admin profile, which is a standard profile. This is a standard profile, right? It was there by default. I want all the permissions from this profile. The only thing that I don't want here is the delete permission. Okay, let's say I don't want to give the delete permission to this profile users. So what I should do is, because I'm not able to edit that here, what I should do is I should clone this profile, create a new custom profile. I do that and do that. Just go to profiles, click on new profile, select the profile from which you want to clone it. Cloning is just a a way of making your things a little simpler, because you need all other functionalities of system administrator, so you will use a system administrator profile to clone it. Sys admin without delete permission. Call it anything, whatever you want. Okay. So now this is my custom profile. This is something that I have created. This was not there earlier. If you click on edit here and scroll down, you will see here you have the option of changing the object permissions. So you don't want to give the delete access, your choice. And control it this way. See, this is how it should be done. So I've removed the delete permissions from them. If you want, you can remove it from all the objects, right? So this list has all the standard as well as custom object. Custom object, I think you all know, right? The ones that you create are called custom objects, and the ones which are by default created are called standard objects, right? So this is how things are controlled on profile. So there's no problem with the app and tab setting that can be changed on standard profile, but you cannot change the object level permissions on a standard profile. If you need a completely customized kind of an object permission for a certain user, you have to make sure that you are using your own profile when you are creating a custom profile. Everyone on it clear? If anyone has any question on this, please let me know. Okay. So seems we are okay on this. Now we listed a few things here. Field permission is the other thing. So app visibility, tab visibility, object visibility, we have understood. Field permission. On the profile, don't click on the edit button. Okay. Don't click on the edit button. Just scroll down a little. You will see field permissions, field level security. It's called field level security. Okay. For any profile, you have the option of defining the field level security. Now let's say, for example, account website, I'm just giving an example, or contact email ID is a confidential field and you don't want the users of this profile to see that email ID. So email ID is under contacts, right? So you should go to contact, click on view. Email ID is a field inside this, so just click on view. Okay. And you will have the option of making which all fields you want to be visible to this profile. Right now, email field, if you see, this is visible to this profile. If you don't want the users of this profile to view the email field, just go to edit, email, and make it not visible. Now the users of this profile will get to see all the fields of contact, but they will not get to see the email field. Make sense, right? There can be certain fields which are very, very confidential, which you don't want everyone to view. Let's say HR application has salary details as well. You don't want some users to view the salaries of the employees. Make it invisible. Okay, so some profiles, some users or some group of users can be just made to not view the profile, a certain field, all right, or multiple fields. Got it? So this is a field level permission. So this is also controlled through profile. So you just go to profile, don't click on edit. If you want field level security to be edited, you don't have to click on the edit button. Just come to field level security and others, and you can just go to the object for which you want to control the field visibility. Click on that particular object's view option and then make the fields visible or not visible as per your requirement. Okay, is that clear? Okay, if you want the login time to be controlled for a certain profile, again, don't click on the edit, scroll down towards the end of it. After object permissions, you will have an option of login hours. So you can define the login hours for a certain profile here. Click on edit, define which day, what time to what time that the user profile should be allowed to log in. That's it. On Monday, if the user is allowed to log in from 9 AM to 6 PM, let's define that. If it's on a Tuesday, it's 8 AM to 8 PM, define that. So for every weekday, you can define it. Okay. And all times are in this specific daylight time. So this specific daylight time, how did this come? This came from your company setup. Remember while doing the company setup, you have set the time zone also, or you might have defined a location. So that is where this all time zone comes from. Okay, so just keep this time zone in mind and then define it accordingly. If you're controlling for India, then your timing should be as per Indian time, as calculated based on Pacific Daylight Time, right? Okay. Navyata has a question here. She says, who are the users here? Okay, users are people who have the licenses. Like if I'm talking about a company which is using Salesforce.com, there will be multiple people in the company who will be using it, right? Like the sales people, the marketing people, the HR people, right? Users are the people who are using Salesforce.com for the company. Is that clear, Namita?
Yeah, but if the users don't have this profiles to read, for example, you said this contact, right? They can't see the email
right.
field. So then how can they enter the information of the customers?
Right. So see, that is something that you have to understand. If you are an administrator, then you have to understand that part, that if there is a user who needs to access that information, then you should not make it invisible from that user. Correct. But if there is a user, for example, if there is a user who is entering the email IDs himself, then I cannot restrict the email ID from that user, right? But if there is a customer support user who just helps the customers with some queries and all, does he need to access your email ID? No, right? But someone who needs to send you email, for him it's mandatory, right? So that is something which we'll have to understand while we are giving permission, that who needs that permission. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. I mean, generally salary information, you can hear me? Actually worried that okay fine, this employee may take out my data and tomorrow he might start working with some other client and share the data with them. So this is a general thing, though it does not sound very good actually, but this is how it happens. There are people who actually take the data from one company and then they shift to the other company and stuff like that. So the employers are worried or concerned about this aspect also, right? So sometimes you might not want that important information to be exposed too much. That is it, right? Does that answer the question? Do you have any other queries related to that?
No,
Nandita?
fine.
That's fine, right? Okay. So login timing is controlled like this. We were just talking about this login timing. I think that's also there. Admin permissions and user permissions. If you see into a profile again, okay. So there are a lot of general user permissions. Okay, what a user can do or cannot do within Salesforce. These are all normal permission. Whether you can send a mass email or not, whether you can delete a topic or not, whether you can create a topic or not, whether you can activate a contract or not, these kind of permissions, user permissions. Admin permission, whether you can manage login access policies or not. So these admin permissions are more to do with the setup menu in the left hand side. So what all options will be available to a user on the setup menu, that completely depends on the permissions that a user has received through admin and general user permissions. Okay, so these are things, I mean, you don't need to get into all of these at this point of time, but gradually as you do things practically, you will understand. See, whether you can import leads or not, we have done imports and all, right? Whether user can import leads or not, whether he can import something else or not, whether he can export reports or not. So all these permissions are controlled here through the admin and general user permissions. Got it? So that's about profile. Got it? So any user, what he can do within Salesforce, whether it's viewing an app, a tab, creating records, deleting records, or doing some other activity on Salesforce, everything depends on the profile that he has. Got that? So this is completely about the profile of the user. Okay. And again, as I told you, Salesforce by default gives us certain profiles which are called standard profiles. We do have an option of controlling things through custom profile also. If I feel that no, I am not able to manage my users through using the standard profiles, I need some different set of permissions for my users, I am very much free to go ahead and create my own custom profile. Is that okay? Okay. Now profile is just one of these options. There are two more options which we are going to talk in tomorrow's session. One is called a permission set. Okay. Permission set is basically used to define an exception to profile. So we'll talk about this in detail tomorrow. Permission set is another option. This is also a collection of permissions, but this is used for defining exceptions to the profile. Okay, how? We'll talk about it. and then there is another option called sharing settings. Okay, sharing settings is about data sharing. Okay, as we have seen within Salesforce that every record has an owner. Let's say there's an account IBM, and let's say Navyata is the owner of that account. What does that mean? That means Navyata is the person who is responsible for that account. Whatever happens with that account, whether we get a deal, we don't get a deal, she is the lead there. She is the one who is the owner for that particular account, right? Now, sharing settings is where we define whether I can see the data that someone else owns, like if Navyata owns an account, whether I will get to see that or not. That is about sharing settings. Whether users will share their data with others or not, that is the sharing settings. So the company can have both kind of requirements. There can be a requirement where the company says, no, only the owner will get to see. For example, Navyata owns an account IBM, I own another account which is Dell, for example. Now, my company may have a requirement where they say that no, Navyata should only see IBM, she should not see Dell, and Jeet should not see IBM. The reason can be anything, but they can have this requirement. Second requirement that they can have is no matter who is the owner, everyone should get to see all the data. So that thing we will define using sharing settings. Okay, so that is what we are going to talk about. So these two things we are going to talk in tomorrow's session: the permission set and the sharing settings. All right. So that is it. Please let me know if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I think we are good for today.
Yeah, Jeep, I have few concerns. Like, we'll be completing a master's by the end of April, so I just wanted to know how soon are we going to complete this complete training?
Before end of April. In fact, we have a couple of, because we were not doing the sessions last week. I think Balaji has sent you an email, and I think other people were also
Yeah.
informed of that. So we are planning to do a couple of longer sessions during this weekend. So please keep your Saturday, Sunday a little less occupied. Saturday, Sunday, your evenings we are gonna have long sessions. Okay, and we are gonna make up or compensate for the time that we lost last week. And by before end of April we should be done. I mean, maybe say third week or fourth week of April we should be done.
Okay.
Right?
And also, Jeep, I have asked in the starting of the session, I mean, first class, regarding the course content of the training, and as I told you, like I have plans for doing the certifications as well. So, material is also what I'm looking for.
So you don't have the course content, I think.
No, you said you'll be sending it, but you haven't.
Okay. Uh, I have shared it with few people. I do not have email IDs of few people. So Chandu, have you sent me a test email on contact Jeet Singh?
Okay, just a minute. What's the email address?
Contact contact Jeet Singh, Jeet Singh at gmail.com.